Good morning, viewer. Welcome to All for TV. Here's the breaking news. Yes, a Chinese invasion of Taiwan in 2026 would result in thousands of casualties among Chinese, United States, Taiwanese, and Japanese forces. And it would be unlikely to result in a victory for Beijing, according to a prominent independent Washington think tank, which conducted war game simulation of a possible conflict that is preoccupying military and political leaders in Asia and Washington. A war over Taiwan could leave a victorious US military in as crippled a state as the Chinese forces it defeated. At the end of the conflict, at least 2 US aircraft carriers would lie at the bottom of the Pacific, and China's modern navy, which is the biggest in the world, would be in shambles. Those are among the conclusions the Center for Strategic and International Studies made after running what it claims is one of the most extensive war game simulation conducted on a possible conflict over Taiwan. The democratically ruled island of 24 million that the Chinese Communist Party claims as part of its sovereign territory despite never having controlled it. Chinese leader Xi Jinping has refused to rule out the use of military force to bring the island under Beijing's control. CNN reviewed an advanced copy of the report titled "The First Battle of the Next War" on the 24 war scenarios run by CSIS, which said the project was necessary because previous government and private war simulation have been too narrow or too opaque to give the public and policymakers a true look at how conflict across the Taiwan Strait might play out. There is no unclassified war game out there is looking at the US-China conflict, said Mark Cancion, one of the 3 project leaders and a senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Of the game that are classified, they are usually only done once or twice. CSIS run this war game 24 times to answer 2 fundamental questions. Would the invasion succeed and what cost? The likely answers to those 2 questions are no and anonymous, the CSIS report said. The United States and Japan lose dozens of ships, hundreds of aircraft, and thousands of service members. Such losses would damage the US global position for many years, the report said. In most scenarios, the US Navy lost 2 aircraft carriers and 10 to 20 large surface combatants. Approximately 3,200 US troops would be killed in 3 weeks of combat, nearly half of what the US lost in 2 decades of combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. China also suffers heavily. Its navy is in shambles. The core of its amphibious forces is broken, and tens of thousands of soldiers are prisoners of war, it said. The report estimated China would suffer about 10,000 troops killed and lose 155 combat aircraft and 138 major ships. The scenarios paint a bleak future for Taiwan even if a Chinese invasion does not succeed. While Taiwan's military is unbroken, yes, it is severely degraded and left to defend a damaged economy on an island without electricity and basic services. The report, the Iceland's army would suffer about 3,500 casualties, and all 26 destroyers and frigates in its navy will be sunk, the report said. Japan is likely to lose more than 100 combat aircraft and 26 warships, while US military bases on its home territory come under Chinese attack, the report found. But CSIS said it did not want its report to imply a war over Taiwan is inevitable or even probable. The Chinese leadership might adopt a strategy of diplomatic isolation, grey zone pressure, or economic coercion against Taiwan, it said. Behind the report for TV.